Currently, the government actually isn't running. And this is where this battle goes back and forth about the blame game. Except Donald Trump doesn't really want to deal in talking about the blame game. He just puts out a bunch of things that clearly illustrates it's all up to him, and it's what he exactly wants.
Now their time has come. Here the power's gone. Russ Vought is the reaper. He wields a pen, the funds and the brain. Here comes the reaper. Done to your babies. Comes the reaper. Gonna tie your hands. Here comes the reaper. Won't be able to fly. Here comes the reaper. Cry baby and your plan. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah.
Donald Trump does like to post random things and they think it's funny, but there's always a message behind it. What that is a message to point out that Russ Vought, the guy that Donald Trump has in charge of firing more federal workers and slimming down the government even further now that it's in shutdown, as they act like they don't want that, even though that's what they've triggered. They have a whole song and dance about how he's the Grim Reaper. They're telling you to your face, we're here to kill this country. What other politician talks about how the people that they've appointed and the people that they've empowered are here to murder, are here to kill? And that's somehow a winning political message. He posts one thing about how he and his buddies are the Grim Reaper, but somehow at the same time, he posts that the Democratic Party is dead. Maybe they got hit by that Grim Reaper, that murderous regime that you run. The party of hate, evil, and Satan. For the people who believe all the things that he says, that's what they begin to ingest. Like, oh man, they're evil. They actually want people to have health care. They want us to get something back for all the tax dollars that we pay. Don't forget, Russ Vought, as I point out in a small motion, in a small moment earlier this week, he's one of the architects of Project 2025. We're going to get to more details of that. Even folks on Fox News, one John Roberts, he couldn't help but to point out how Donald Trump once talked about how he knew nothing about this process, but now is completely celebrating it.
Hey, the other reality check comes in the form of what President Trump was saying on Truth Social about getting together with his OMB director, Russ Vought, to talk about changing the face of the federal government. He said, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. Remember what Donald Trump said a year ago. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. So I'm wondering, Francesca, did he just learn about Project 2025 in the last year, or did he know about it all along?
And it's also not clear, John, whether or not he was actually sitting there with Russ Vought and going line by line, himself and deciding what is or isn't being cut here. Because, of course, prior to this, the Office of Management and Budget, as well as the Office of Personnel Management, they had sent out messages to these various agencies saying, no, you send us plans for who you think that you should cut, and then we'll approve them.
Francesca Chambers didn't have to answer the question, which she didn't, of whether or not Donald Trump knew about Project 2025 before, if he's faking it now, as the panel chuckled about this fucking liar. Oh, can you believe the president lied during the campaign and so many people believed him? And now he's implementing exactly what it is that the folks who were calling this out and detailed the dangers of it are now going through. Isn't it funny? I mean, we're not sure if he's doing this to bring people to the negotiating table or not, but who cares? He's just a liar. This is how we got to this point. But over on CNN, they also did detail how many times Donald Trump denied that he knew anything about Project 2025.
Speaking of Trump, he said this morning that I have a meeting today with Russ Vought of Project 2025 fame. Of course, that was the project that Democrats demonized, went after hard in the campaign, saying, look at this, and they tried to campaign very hard on it. And then Donald Trump, when he was running for the second term, said, well, this Project 2025 thing, I don't really know much about it.
Some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. They are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. but I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. Project 2025, I've said 100 times, I know nothing about it. I had nothing to do.
And today, meeting of Russ Vought of Project 2025 fame.
Fame.
I'm still not sure why these news organizations are chuckling as they sit there and expose him. We really have to pay attention to the energy around these exposures. Manu Raju, I like the work that he does. He's really good at what he does. But as they're exposing this blatant lie, they don't go to that next step. It's like, he wasn't he lying there? Well, yes, he was. Why was he lying about it? And then what are we going to do about it? What is it that's going to be affected because of his lies on it? Because as he pointed out, Trump during his denials, he said this extreme Project 2025, people from the extreme right are on board with Project 2025. Now in October of 2025, he's saying how the guy who was one of the architects is the famous of Project 2025 fame. Suddenly, is Donald Trump now saying he's an extreme right-wing person? Is he a fascist? Because he just said he's on board, and that's what they want to do. Matter of fact, during those denials, I'm going to give you guys a flashback. There was some secret videos that were taken of folks that were acting like they were going to be donors or financial donors in support of this MAGA fascist party as they were running this campaign and preparing to try and get back into power. And Russ Vought spoke to the guy. This is what Russ Vought had to say about Donald Trump's denials. We ran this during the campaign. I just want to make sure you guys remember.
I expected to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
He's running against a brand. He is not running against any people.
Okay.
He is not running against any institutions. It's interesting. He's in fact not even opposing himself to a particular policy.
Yeah.
He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed it from the, I remember walking into our last day in office and told him what I was going to do. So he's very supportive of what we do. If a battle plan is out there that will do what he wants, there are the people like me that have his trust that will be able to get it to him in whatever position we're at. Or I could be at Center for New America, but the relationships will be there. The trust level will be there.
No matter how many times Donald Trump denied it, we know we're going to be in these positions where we can influence him and affect him. We had this conversation, Russ Vought said, and he trusts me. We're going to implement this. He can deny it in front of them because they keep pushing this boogeyman of it. Except as you're talking behind closed doors about all these things you want to do, it's kind of like you're the boogeyman and you're real. Here's more from those secret tapes. This is part of what he wanted to implement.
80% of my time is working on the plans of what's necessary to take control of these bureaucracies. And we are working doggedly on that, whether it's destroying their agency's notion of independence. They're independent from the president.
Take control of these agencies and make sure that they lose that idea of independence from the president. So, again, these news organizations are talking about how Donald Trump knew nothing about Project 2025. He said so. And now that we've realized that he was lying, the last few people that were gullible enough to not know he was lying are realizing that he was lying. They talk about it and chuckle rather than going through all of these old videos, old being by a year ago when they were exposed, about their detailed plans behind it. So if you point out he was lying, at least point out the results of us believing those lies. Why can't we ever finish the thought? Can you believe Donald Trump lied? Let's move on to the next story. How about once we realize Donald Trump lied, the last 5 people realize that Donald Trump is a liar, that then we go talk about why it's important that he lied and why we're now seeing the truth and what the you're gonna do in response to that. There's more secret tapes.
Yeah.
Because obviously you want as little of it to be FOIA-able, if you're familiar with the FOIA process, as possible.
Freedom of Information Act, yeah.
The Freedom of Information Act allows the public to request government communications, but Meadowcroft reveals they plan to avoid these rules.
Yeah, the goal is, familiarize all the transition team people with these plans.
Yeah.
But you don't actually send them to their work emails because then,
right.
You could just give the handbooks to everyone. Be like, this is the game plan for the admin.
Yeah.
If the press knows that that's what you're doing, then they're going to immediately just say, I request all of your emails from Heritage.
Okay.
You
right.
worker.
I see.
So we'll see.
Interesting.
Weird. Secret conversations about how they'll avoid any accountability, how they'll hide their plans that they're writing on paper. They can't email them to each other, so they have to find some other kind of covert way to communicate their plans to destroy the country. And as we see that, we're not getting every news outlet talking about how Donald Trump and the Project 2025 folks and the Heritage Foundation were planning this from the beginning.